Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today on intuitive AI for document processing. I'm going to give everybody 30 seconds or so to join and get settled, and then we'll get started. We've still got a couple people trickling in, but we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you that are just joining us, good morning or probably good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today on intuitive AI for document processing. Today, we're going to dive into the exciting world of intuitive AI, sharing compelling stories and insights. But before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded, and we will share the recording with you after the webinar today. We do encourage your participation, so feel free to ask questions in the chat using the chat feature in the Zoom webinar. We do want to keep this interactive, so ask those questions, comments, anything that you have along the way. We will keep the lines muted just to avoid any distractions or disruptions, but again, welcome your questions and your feedback. Our speakers today are Bart Peluso, our Vice President of Marketing at KnowledgeLake, and Jason Burian, the Vice President of Product. So with that, Bart, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Rachel, and thanks everyone for joining a subject that I certainly enjoy, and that's artificial intelligence. So let's open and have a little bit of fun with it. How pervasive is AI? One of the questions was, is AI artistic? Well, in 2018, an AI-generated artwork titled Portrait of Edmond de Bellamy, it was predicted to yield $3,000 to $6,000 at Christie's auction. It ended up selling for almost $500,000. The artwork was created using a machine learning algorithm, and its high price and recognition sparked debates about the value of AI-generated art and the ability for AI to be creative. So, is AI romantic? Here's an interesting one. The answer is certainly. I have learned that AI has been trained on vast amounts of text data, including various types of content, like, get this, pickup lines. Here are a few examples. Are you a magician? Because whenever I look at you, everyone else disappears. That pickup line was actually generated by an AI algorithm. Here's another. Is your name Google? Because you've got everything I'm searching for. And my favorite was that one, but there's a bunch of others, AI-generated pickup lines, and they're being used today. But what about the accuracy, right? What is the robot's accuracy? Have you heard of the blueberry muffin versus Chihuahua? So this actually came up with artificial intelligence. And these graphics look very similar to a machine, but actually 72% of AI machines got it correct and was able to tell the difference between a blueberry muffin and a Chihuahua, right? And then when Google AI made this mistake and it was called out in the AI engine, it stated, hey, look, I'm sorry, I'm just having a bad day. So we are certainly in the age of AI. And it is a powerhouse when it comes to analyzing data. In fact, it can analyze more data in a minute than a human can in an entire lifetime. The world's first AI university was opened in Abu Dhabi. This is in 2019, and it's dedicated entirely to advancing artificial intelligence. And AI is more prolific than we think. Over 77% of the devices we use daily are powered by AI in some form or another, and it's becoming more pervasive every day. Algorithms are even used in the medical field. They have been developed to predict patients' risks and to help with diagnoses, even identifying cancers on radiology images. And as per OpenAI's GPT-3, and this goes back a few iterations, it contained over 175 billion machine learning parameters, right? This model, and we'll talk a little bit about it today, can generate human-like text, solve complex tasks, and has been used in a variety of applications, from everything from drafting emails to creating written content and a whole lot more. So what really is AI? Let's take a real close look. I'm going to turn it over to Jason now. Jason?
Thanks. I think, thanks, Bart. Thanks for sharing that. AI is a big industry, a big field. And there's a couple of terms that I think are important. Machine learning has become a very popular term over the last couple of years, and that falls under the category of AI. But in general, AI is the science of making machines think like humans. And there are different varying levels of sub-disciplines underneath that, like machine learning or deep learning, which things like large language models fall into. So what are large language models? Large language models are a sub-discipline of artificial intelligence. We've heard a lot about them since sort of last November when OpenAI released their version of ChatGPT 3. And that really sort of kicked off this last wave. Large language models are deep learning models that have trained on massive amounts of textual data, books, websites, academic research papers, online forums like Reddit, news and media blog posts and articles, conversational data. It really crawled a lot of large language models are crawled the internet, and they've built with all of these texts. And it can use those large texts to predict and answer questions in the same way that you would have a conversation with somebody, or provide explanations like you were having a conversation, and even write articles or stories or blog posts or create content. I find it interesting. I would even probably guess that this statistic is low, that over 96% of organizations are saying that things like generative AI and non-deterministic large language models are topics of discussion in their boardroom. So we've talked a lot about large language models. The best sort of explanation of that is GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, which belongs to a company called OpenAI. So what does GPT stand for? Because I think this is a great way of explaining sort of how this technology works. First, it's generative, meaning it's not predictive. It doesn't have to be trained. It can use creativity to generate or create something in the same way a human would, like text. So that stands for G. P, pre-trained. It's built on relationships between words, grammar, linguistic patterns, human speech and human writing. And then finally, the most important part, which is the transformer part, which is a process to sequence the data, meaning putting words in a line to create a sentence. And so it looks at all of this language, and you ask it a question, and then it starts with the first word, and then based on statistics, it guesses what the second word should be, and then the third, and then the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, until it creates sort of information. So, I think we have seen an unimaginable growth in AI since sort of late November, when ChatGPT first dropped on the scene. Just as an example of that, This is a chart that shows the number of months that it took these different services to reach 100 million global active users. So it took 216 months for Netflix to get to 100 million active users. Now, let's remember that they started actually as a DVD service, mailing service. But you can see a giant jump with Spotify. And then as we get more into social media with Twitter and Facebook, it took Twitter several years to reach 100 million users. It took ChatGPT 2 months to hit 100 million global active users. Okay, so with that, we have our first poll question, which Rachel will drop in here real quick just to get an idea. So the first poll question is, how is your organization currently utilizing AI technology? A little bit, initial stages of exploration, maybe not at all. Maybe you've prototyped an initial idea in a department. Maybe you're really deep. There are several different parts of your organization using it in all different ways. And so we'll give you guys a second to answer here. Awesome. That's great. Well, thanks for everybody's participation there. We'll hit end poll and hopefully share the results. And so you guys should be able to see that now. It looks like a few sort of not yet, but most of the audience either dipping their toes, initial exploration, maybe trying to find that first use case, or have already implemented in some departments. So that's great. Thanks everybody for sharing. Oh, let me go back. So you can see here a recent study done by the Capgemini Research Institute. Over almost 90% of organizations are establishing a team with dedicated budget for implementation of AI or looking at establishing the team. So clearly a very, very popular subject in a lot of organizations today. And then we'll have one last poll question here, just get you guys involved early on. And so Rachel's going to share that one for us. And so what ways are you thinking about using AI and large language models, things like ChatGPT? Is it the automation of repetitive tasks? Is it, we've seen a lot of like customer service creating more effective chat bots that can more easily answer questions, decision-making capabilities, data insights. Fraud detection is really, really big, especially in the financial services sector, being able to sort of examine a corpus of data and understand pattern recognition, fraud, anomalies, things like that. I'll give everybody just another second. That's great. Thank you. So again, I think, probably no surprise that everybody here in the audience is already a KnowledgeLake client. That your sort of vision for using AI lines up with ours, which is around data insights and analytics and the automation of repetitive tasks. So thanks everybody for sharing that. So here's another report again from the Capgemini Institute about sort of how organizations are feeling, and I think again lining up a lot with the way that you guys are thinking about it. I think, one of the things that I think we'll see grow sort of maybe more than halfway down the list is around images. You're using things like DALL-E and Midsummer and these image creation, these image generating tools that have just recently had this breakthrough about also being able to generate text inside of images. That was always a problem for them. And I think that marketing teams and creative teams and branding teams being able to create images and video out of nothing but just an idea, I think we'll see a huge rise inside of organizations. All right, with that, I'll turn it back over to Bart to talk about KnowledgeLake and what KnowledgeLake Intuitive AI is.
Hey, thanks so much, Jason. So folks, when you hear the term intuitive AI, that's a KnowledgeLake term, something we launched with our streamlined solutions and It's something that's really exciting in terms of impacting your business, right? So by intuitive AI, we're talking about AI systems or technologies that are designed to mimic or replace human-like intuition or cognitive processes. It aims to enable machines to understand and interpret information in a manner that's similar to how humans interpret information. And the goal, of course, is to make it easier for humans to interact with and understand AI systems, right? Making better decisions. Intuitive AI often incorporates advanced machine learning techniques, deep learning, natural language processing to process and analyze vast amounts of data, huge amounts. And by leveraging these techniques, intuitive AI systems can recognize patterns, it makes predictions, it generates responses or actions that align with human intuition, okay? So overall, right, the objective is to bridge the gap between human and machine understanding. And we're getting close, right? Allowing AI systems to comprehend and respond to human needs and preferences in a more natural and intuitive manner. And this can enhance various applications. Virtual assistants, they can become smarter, they can become intuitive. Customer service bots can understand tone. Is a customer open to new experiences? Is a customer agitated? Recommendation systems, and even in the area of autonomous vehicles, right? By enabling more seamless and human-like interactions between the users and the AI systems, right? We're in the dawn of the intuitive AI era, but as Jason mentioned, the adoption is moving faster than ever before, or really faster than any technology that has preceded it. And I want to talk a little bit now about how it fits in to a smart enterprise content management platform. So we kind of drew this out as a new architecture, and many of you are very familiar with IDP, what IDP is, right? You have your ingestion component, whether it comes from a portal, an email, or scanned. The documents are ingested, they're classified, and the data is extracted. And now that data can be extracted really with zero training. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a moment. And then what do you do with the extraction of data? Well, you kick off a workflow. That could be desktop attended bot. It can be developed automation, RPA, robotic process automation. That's really, really complex, but the workflow involves people, it involves bots, and it involves integrations with some of the most common software and business platforms in the world. And then finally, of course, is the component of content management. It's what we do, what we've been doing for a really long time. It's what many of you do, right? And that's releasing the documents and their data to a specific repository so you can search and pull it up. There was one organization that we were talking to that was talking about the processing of 50 million documents per month. So imagine the categorization of that. So your document processing, your workflow automation, and the management of the content sits on the platform. But in the middle, and you'll hear a lot more about this, we have an upcoming webinar on it as well, is Streamline Solutions, right? What Streamline Solutions is a pre-built business process. So that whole workflow automation, the KnowledgeLake team can pre-build that for you for very specific initiatives, client onboarding, accounts payable. There are different pre-built processes for different organizations. And that kind of sits between, the KnowledgeLake ECM platform and the functionality of that platform. And the reason why we included this architecture here on this Intuitive AI webinar is that AI, right, the integrated generative AI component, what we were talking about earlier in terms of generative AI, that is straight through the platform. So it can be used in the processing of the document, it can be used in part of the workflow, and it can be used in part of the content management. So kind of how it all fits together, and there will be more on Streamline Solutions that I'll talk about at the end of this webinar. Okay, I just wanted to take a moment, Jason and I, to kind of clarify, in the most practical manner, right? The lowest common denominator for AI as it relates to document processing. So in order to do that, I'm going to step back and take just a minute on the history of AI and document processing. So we all know the purpose of document processing, intelligent document processing, IDP, is to take unstructured content in the form of documents and transform it into structured information or data that can be used for a business process, right? That can be used to increase the value of an organization, to make people more efficient, right? And over the years, the way that we have done that has changed, and now it's accelerating. Originally, it was OCR, and I recollect that from way back. Optical character reading, right? How we read addresses from envelopes at the post office, and then we included code to make that a little more intelligent. Then there was the search for regular expressions, right? And machine learning. It seems like 100 years ago, I was at a seminar on machine learning for document processing, and it was 2018. And we were talking about rules-based, right? So if you get rules-based machine learning, so for instance, if you get 100 invoices and 99 of them have the word invoice and one of them has the word bill, then you could kind of go into software and train it, right? That was the machine learning component, and say, when you get an invoice from this vendor, the word bill relates to invoice. Then it got a little smarter to pre-built models. Where we are today with generative AI is just amazing, because we went from really high training, which meant you needed expertise in this area, you need developers, and it cost a lot, to essentially zero training, right? And this is what zero training kind of looks like in the product itself. This is just one example of the use of intuitive AI, but the examples really could be virtually infinite, right? In this case, your traditional intelligent document processing, right, the machine learning, is no longer like college math. It's no longer an if P then Q. In this case, the intuitive AI is accurately extracting and summarizing meaningful information. So the example you see here is a legal document, and that legal document could be 80 pages. That legal document could be 200 pages, right? And we're using the intuitive AI feature to say, please summarize this document with the pertinent facts. And boom, you're getting a paragraph of the pertinent facts of that legal document, as opposed to going in there the way we used to with machine learning and training that and saying, if you see this word, it means this. If you see this term, it means this. An alternative of this term could mean this. In using generative AI, it's because of the pool of data and knowledge, it's become that intelligent. So there's all kinds of things you can do with this brain power when you're processing a document. And we're using it here in the office all the time, because we find it we find it fascinating, and because it brings real business benefits. And I'm going to take just a minute to go over a few of those business benefits. So, advanced document understanding, right? This is the accurate extraction and summarization of meaningful information, like the example I just gave you on the legal document. Accelerated setup, right? So think about building out, complex workflows. AI is going to combine ease and simplicity of natural language with the flexibility and power of low-code development, meaning you can set something up really quickly in terms of a workflow. And then informed decision-making, identifying patterns and correlations within content, suggesting actions, highlighting anomalies. That's really, really important in invoicing and accounts payable, is to look for peculiar anomalies, and that AI is like this exponentially increased brain power that can help you find that anomaly. And then it can enhance search and discovery, which we've had for a long time, but it was manual. You kind of search the document. Now AI can help you search that document. So if we bring it into specific use cases in different areas, I'm just going to throw out a few here. Financial services is, you think about AI in terms of risk assessment, extracting relevant data from various documents of financial statements, loan applications, and insurance forms, maybe across a multitude of those documents under one customer. This reduces error and improves efficiency, right? Fraud detection and prevention in the space of financial services, or any industry really. You can detect abnormal patterns and unusual transactions that could just flag possible fraudulent activities. Analyzing historical data to identify suspicious activities, right? And then that real-time natural language queries during the document review could yield AI responses. And those responses remain private and secure. We'll talk about that in a minute. I kind of went over, a use case for the legal area in terms of summarizing really complex documents. I mean, in the case of healthcare, that intuitive AI can support medical coding and billing assistance, right? Because the intuitive AI content enrichment extracts relevant information from clinical documents and maps it to coding systems. There's coding systems out there in the healthcare space. There's one called ICD-10, which is International Classification of Diseases. AI can pull something out of a medical document and throw a flag. There's others as well. In the space of manufacturing, there's a supply chain optimization where data is analyzed across purchase orders, compared to supplier contracts, shipping records, inventory reports. I mean, there's really all kinds of use cases for different industries, but the net of it is you have this exponentially increased brain power, and it's right there by the document while you're doing the processing. So with that, I think we're doing okay with time. We can move to a demonstration with Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Bart. So we wanted to show you some real world examples of how KnowledgeLake Intuitive UI or KnowledgeLake Intuitive AI works inside of the KnowledgeLake user experience. And, no better place to start with the ability to identify what a document is and extract the pertinent facts. Like Bart said earlier, one of the whole key tenet of intelligent document processing is being able to identify a document and convert unstructured content in the form of documents to structured data. And so I just wanted to walk through a couple of examples of how that could work for you and your documents. So here we see one of our very most common use cases across all of our organizations, our customers, which is invoices. And I think one of the important things to note here is this works out of the box, day zero, no training. We have the ability to extract data without having to set anything up or turn anything on by purely just defining the pieces of data that we want to extract from the document. Intuitive AI is able to find that in the document. No regular expressions, no drawing boxes, no fingerprints or training. It just works. And so that also includes things like line item extraction. Next, here's a couple of examples in financial services. So being able to look at like a loan estimate to be able to get things off the document like loan type and loan ID, but also estimated property values, interest rates. Is this document signed or not? Here's another example of a settlement agent statement. You know, when you're doing loans, these could be lots of different various formats. And so intuitive AI, because it doesn't require any training, has the ability to extract this data from all different layouts of documents. Let's start. So those are very common examples. Let's get into some sort of unique examples. Here's an example of an offer letter. This is part of a hiring workflow in human resources. And we've created this hiring letter, this offer letter, and we want to get, you know, what position are they being offered? What's their salary? What's their start date? And this is what we would call an unstructured document, meaning it's just text on a page. There's not a lot of icons. It doesn't have kind of a fixed layout. In the past, this would have been really, really hard to get information out of. Think about a letter of correspondence as a part of a claim or a legal proceeding. Think about a contract, being able to go find in the middle of the contract things like, you know, who are the subjects, what's the contract date, how much the amount, when does it expire, you know, does it have any cancellation terms, those kinds of things. Here's a great example of a legal document. So being able to see, you know, the plaintiff, the defendant, the case number, but also get a rich summary of the document that, because we're extracting it and creating this summary, that summary is also searchable. Here is a transcript. So for our customers that are in the audience, our clients that are in the audience at one of our many universities that we serve, transcripts can be really, really, really difficult because you can accept transcripts from a huge, wide variety of schools. And not only are we getting things like school name and date issued and date of birth, right? That's actually the kind of relatively easy stuff. But calculating, reading all of the text on the page and calculating total credits earned and unweighted GPA. That's not a field that we're pulling out of one value. That's a calculation based off of all of the different data elements on the page. And then this one I find just to be super interesting, which is you're looking at a chemistry profile for some blood testing for a lab result. So not only were we just getting key value pair data and summary data, and does this document contain PII and things like that, but being able to look at very complicated lab data and summarize it in a very specific format by simply getting the prompt right and asking the intuitive AI the right question of the type of data we're getting. So I'll pause here for a second. There was a question from the audience. Can this data be retrieved from Excel, for example? Yes. The great thing about KnowledgeLake Intuitive AI, images, photos, PDFs, Excel documents, Word documents, it doesn't matter what the document format is. We're able to get these insights out of these documents sort of regardless of what medium or what type or what shape they take. I saw a very interesting use case a few weeks ago about land survey documents, these sort of very large, huge sort of land survey plotter documents, and it was still able to intuit really interesting facts about that document. Okay, so just in summary, obviously intuitive AI, great for just extracting values, invoice number, account number, patient ID, name, amount, things like that, the common things, right? But the difference now is it's being able to do that completely untrained, no setup, out of the box, without having to define regular expressions or write code or create fingerprints. It just knows how to get that data. It can also be used for things like translation. So translating multilingual documents, or maybe you want to convert currencies from pounds to dollars. Personal information. Does this document contain PII? Does it contain an SSN? Does it contain a credit card number? Does it contain somebody's email address? Those types of questions, you don't necessarily want the SSN, but you want to know if it's there, because you might want to apply some security policy or information labels or different routing based on that answer to that question. Summaries. We're working with a client right now, and part of their workflow is creating a loan agreement, creating the terms of the loan, which oftentimes can be written in really complicated legalese, like very complicated sort of lawyer speak and contract stuff that they write on purpose to mess you up. And what we're returning with the fully formed contract to the customer is a summary of the document and the different sections in very common language, so that the customer is very transparent and exactly what this section of the document is saying in very common language. And we're using intuitive AI to generate that summary. And then analysis. How many credits earned, cumulative GPA, summarize these lab results. Right? This is just the tip of the iceberg on the types of insights that we can get out of these documents. All right. And then I want to talk now about security, because in the world of AI, information, data security, privacy, is my data going into these large language models? We've all heard the story that, the entire country of Italy banned ChatGPT because they were worried about sensitive information flowing into the large language model. The story of the Samsung engineer that uploaded all of Samsung's phone Android code to say, find ways that I can optimize this. Well, that then became part of the model. I think it's a totally relevant and reasonable and responsible question to ask. We take that very seriously, as we always take any of our client data. Because of KnowledgeLake's long-running history with Microsoft, we're actually using Microsoft's implementation of OpenAI services. Our data protection agreements with Microsoft are in place. No customer's data is ever commingled. And no data that we send to the AI service is ever shared with other customers, available to other customers, available to OpenAI, used to improve the large language model, available to Microsoft. The information, both the prompts and the responses, are used, recorded, given to us, and then discarded. And so you can be confident that none of your sensitive information, patient data, client data, bank account information is going to be used or found in a publicly accessible model. And I think that all large language model companies will continue to make improvements in this area, because the market has spoken so strongly about why this is important. You might have heard recently that OpenAI released OpenAI Enterprise, which is a specific implementation of large language models that's targeted at businesses that really care about this. Okay, so great, interesting. I learned more about AI. I know what a large language model is. I can talk to that intelligently now. I understand what KnowledgeLake's intuitive AI, and I've seen some ways of where this might be interesting for me as a client. Where do I start? And I think based on the poll results, there's a lot of you in the audience that are just like, okay, I know I need to get going with AI. Where do I start? Great news. KnowledgeLake Intuitive AI for document understanding is ready to go right now. It's already being used by a number of our clients in production. So it's not preview code. We are ready to go now. We are offering, for a very limited time for this audience, we have 10 spots. 10 spots in a no charge, free proof of concept where you can give us some document samples and we'll drop it into Intuitive AI and show you the results. And if it's interesting, it is as simple as turning on the feature. We can turn this on and have it deployed for you in your KnowledgeLake tenant in minutes. And so Rachel has put a link in the chat that is a sign up for the POC. If you're interested, please put your information in there. And it's as simple as just providing us some samples and us showing it how it can work for you. And then Bart, there are some questions at the end, but I'll go on and I'll let you wrap up, and then we'll, for everybody in the audience, we'll answer your questions here at the end. And Bart, you're still on mute.
Thanks so much, Jason. I'm going to take just a minute, talk about some of the great things that are happening. You know, we kind of opened and talked about this new era of intuitive AI. We're growing as an organization. Business is good. We're bringing on new customers, and there's just a lot of activity. And I just want to take a minute to share some of that. You know, I mentioned streamlined solutions, the pre-built processes. We have an upcoming webinar on that. You can talk to your KnowledgeLake representative about that. I kind of summarized it in a new newsletter. You should have received the newsletter if you didn't reach out. And I know we've done some of these in the past, but now we're making them very, very interactive, right? We want to be customer centric, and we want to get more involved with some of the activities that you're doing. So in addition to the webinars, and we were looking at a monthly cadence, but we actually have kind of more than that. We have 2 coming up in September. In September, rather, we have some participation in live events, right? We all went through a bit of a lull due to COVID, but we're at all the EduCons. We were in Washington, D.C. and Seattle. We'll be in Chicago. We'll be at the big 365 EduCon show next year in AIM. We had one customer reach out to us and say, hey, will you be at Workday, right? So, you know, we can integrate with customers and perhaps have customer events at some of these live events. We also have a customer spotlight. If you'd like to tell your story as it relates to document processing, whereas it's prudent and you're okay with it being public knowledge, we can put together a case study or a story, put it in our newsletter, or integrate it into one of our webinars, and talk to your KnowledgeLake representative about a possible co-hosted event at your location. Or we're a 5-time Microsoft Partner of the Year. We can use Microsoft locations, and maybe we co-host an event where you're talking to your colleagues in your specific industry, and KnowledgeLake can support and facilitate that event for you. And then finally, you'll be hearing about our customer advisory board. It went out in the newsletter. If you have an interest, please respond via the newsletter. We'd like to get customers together, put together a formal board, meet virtually, and early next year, meet live in person and talk about the roadmap of our product and the future of our product. So just wanted to share some of the great things that are happening. I know we have some questions because I'm seeing them in the chat. So I'm now going to move forward to Q&A.
Great, thanks. So first question, can we talk about how intuitive AI works on the back end, and how much is customizable versus proprietary? Yeah, sure. I think KnowledgeLake didn't create a large language model. We partnered with Microsoft and their implementation of OpenAI as an Azure service. We participated in the private preview way back at the end of last year, and have been providing them feedback on that service sort of throughout this year as we launched our product and it moved into public preview. So what we've done is we've taken a large language model like GPT-3.5 Turbo and GPT-4, and we've been very clever with the prompts and the way that we interact with the large language model to get the best accuracy and the least amount of hallucinations out of the responses. And like I shared with you about security, everything's private, nothing's shared, nothing reinforces the model, and you can be confident about that. There's another question about customizable versus proprietary, which I think, and if I don't get this right, put in the Q&A again, maybe refine your question. But I think what you're asking is base large language model versus a fine-tuned large language model. So one of the things that you can do with large language models is you can augment it with your own personal data to increase its accuracy or increase your confidence in its responses. And so that's one of the things we're actually working on right now is do we require fine tuning for some use cases? I think what we're seeing out of the box is a really, really, really high level of accuracy without the necessity for fine tuning or customization of a large language model. But it is something that we're actively researching. And if you're interested in that and you want to help us work on that idea, we would love to partner with you and work together on that idea. Stephen asks, what about handwriting? So yes, so the new version of KnowledgeLake Intuitive AI does also support handwriting recognition, being able to convert handwriting to text. 5-10 years ago, if you didn't have handwriting that was in what we would call constrained handprint or handwriting that was in raster boxes, think about like when you go to the DMV and you put like one letter in each box. If you didn't have handwriting like that, it was going to be really hard. What we're seeing now out of modern handwriting recognition is incredible. Unconstrained handprint, cursive handwriting, incredible levels of accuracy. And so, yeah, if you have a handwriting use case that you want to work on, please join the free POC, sign up, because I think you're going to be really excited about what we have to offer. Next, does intuitive AI reduce or eliminate manual tagging the user will need to do with uploading documents? Yes. So Miranda, that's exactly the first use case. If you are uploading documents and having users classify that document, pick the content type, pick the document type, fill in values of key value pairs, stop. Go fill out the free POC, participate with us. We will show you how in a matter of no time, like less than an hour, we can get your system, your KnowledgeLake platform, automatically extracting data and filling in those values so that your users don't have to do them. Okay. Next question. Yes. So Ken asked, can the extracted data be accessed outside of KnowledgeLake? For example, can the extracted info be sent to a JSON string for processing by a customized application to possibly update a database? Yes. In fact, one of the major improvements we made in our new workflow enhancements this summer was the ability to extract data, convert it to a JSON string, call an outside application, either via web service or API or whatever you have, and then also push that data to a database. And so I think the answer is absolutely yes to your question, although I'd love to learn more about exactly what you're trying to solve. Okay, I went fast there. Sorry, I thought we were running out of time. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop them into the Q&A section. Or if you want, you can hit the raise your hand button and we can unmute your mic if you'd rather do that. We'll hang out for another couple of minutes, but otherwise, thank you everybody for joining us today. We appreciate your time. Hopefully you'll take us up on our offer to join our POC so that you can see how intuitive AI works for your documents in your environment. I promise you the effort on your side is incredibly low, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.